Hey, listen up, family. This is for my black folks thinking about making a move. We always hear about the Great Migration, our grandparents leaving the South for a better life. Now we're in a new era, a different kind of migration. We gotta move smarter, not just harder. This ain't about fear, this is about facts. Picking a new state to call home, that's a major life decision. For Black Americans, that calculus is different. We gotta ask the tough questions. So today we're gonna get into it. We're counting down the top 10 states that Black people are starting to give the side eye. This is about providing y'all with the information, so you can make the best decision for you and yours. So buckle up. We're about to take a journey through the states that are earning a spot on the Do Not Fly list for Black America. Florida, the Sunshine State, was once the place to be. People flocked to Florida for the beaches, the theme parks, and the promise of year-round good weather. But lately, that sunshine is casting some real dark shadows. There's a political storm brewing, making many, especially Black people, feel unwelcome. They're banning books and whitewashing Black history. This hostile environment is making Black families rethink putting down roots. The dream is turning into a nightmare. Now let's talk about the money, because that's always part of the equation. People will tell you Florida has no state income tax, and that sounds great on paper. But what they don't tell you is how they make up for it. The cost of living in Florida has gone through the roof, man. It's astronomical. The housing market is out of control. Rent in places like Miami and Orlando is competing with New York and California, but the wages are nowhere near catching up. So you have folks working 2 or 3 jobs just to keep a roof over their head, a roof that might get blown away in the next hurricane, by the way. And let's talk about that homeowners insurance crisis. It's a straight-up disaster. Insurance companies are fleeing the state or jacking up their rates to insane levels because of the climate risks. So even if you manage to scrape together enough to buy a house, you might not be able to afford to insure it. You're one bad storm away from losing everything. This disproportionately affects Black communities, who historically have less generational wealth to fall back on. The dream of homeownership, a key to building wealth, is becoming an unaffordable, high-risk gamble in the state of Florida. It's a trap. Then you look at the job market. Yes, there are jobs, but what kind of jobs are we talking about? Florida's economy is heavily reliant on tourism and service industries, which are notorious for low wages, no benefits, and little room for advancement. These are not the kind of careers that allow you to build a stable future for your family. So while the state boasts about job growth, you have to ask, growth for who? It's a system that seems designed to create a permanent underclass of workers, and we all know who ends up filling those roles. It's a plantation economy for the 21st century. So when you put it all together, the political hostility, the educational censorship, the skyrocketing cost of living, the insurance crisis, and the low-wage job market, the picture becomes crystal clear. The NAACP didn't issue a travel advisory for Florida for no reason. They saw the writing on the wall. They saw a state that is actively becoming hostile to the presence, the history, and the future of Black people. The sunshine is a facade, and more of our folks are choosing to find their light somewhere else. Florida, you get the donkey of the day for a whole decade. All right, coming in at number 2, Oklahoma. Now, Oklahoma has a deep and complicated history with Black America. On one hand, you have the powerful legacy of Black Wall Street. But on the other hand, you have the horrific tragedy of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. That history hangs heavy over the state. They passed a law, HB 1775, that severely restricts how race and gender can be discussed in public school classrooms. Think about the insanity of that. For Black families thinking about moving to Oklahoma, this is a massive red flag. Beyond the classroom controversy, let's look at the quality of life on the ground in Oklahoma. The state consistently ranks near the bottom in some critical areas. Let's start with healthcare. Oklahoma has one of the worst healthcare systems in the country. Access to quality care is a major issue, especially in rural areas. The state has some of the highest rates of chronic diseases, and life expectancy is well below the national average. For Black communities, which already face systemic disparities in healthcare, this is a recipe for disaster. Moving to Oklahoma could literally be a risk to your health and the health of your family. Then there's the criminal justice system. Oklahoma has one of the highest incarceration rates in the world. Let me say that again, not just in the country, And you know who gets caught up in that system disproportionately? Black and Native American people. The state has a reputation for harsh sentencing and a justice system that feels stacked against minorities. The legacy of tough-on-crime policies has created a prison pipeline that devastates families and communities. It's a place where a mistake can cost you your life, and the scales of justice feel anything but balanced. Let's talk education funding. It's not just about what they're teaching, it's about the resources they have to teach it with. Oklahoma has chronically underfunded its public education system for years. Teachers are underpaid, schools are crumbling, and resources are scarce. This leads to larger class sizes and poorer educational outcomes for students. While the politicians are busy fighting culture wars over the curriculum, the actual foundation of the public school system is cracking. For Black parents who see education as the key to their children's upward mobility, Oklahoma's struggling school system is a major deterrent. So when you look at the full picture in Oklahoma, it's bleak. You have a state government that is actively hostile to teaching Black history, a healthcare system that is failing its citizens, a criminal justice system with sky-high incarceration rates, and a public education system that is starved for resources. This isn't a place that's investing in its people, especially not its Black people. The promise of a low cost of living isn't enough to outweigh the systemic neglect and the historical disrespect. The spirit of Black Wall Street was about building and thriving, and right now, the state of Oklahoma feels like a place that's actively working against that spirit. All right, next up, Missouri, the Show Me State. What they've been showing Black folks lately ain't nothing we want to see. The NAACP issued a travel advisory for the entire state. That came after Senate Bill 43 made it harder to sue for housing and employment discrimination. Now, you can't talk about Missouri without talking about Ferguson. The ghost of Michael Brown still haunts that state. It feels like the state put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound and called it healed. It becomes clear why Black folks are saying, nah, I'm good to Missouri. Folks are wisely choosing to look elsewhere for a place to call home. Beyond the social and political climate, let's talk about the money, because at the end of the day, people gotta eat. But in Missouri, the economic opportunities for Black residents are looking slim. We're talking about significant wealth and income gaps that have persisted for generations. If you look at cities like St. Louis and Kansas City, you see these stark lines of division. You can literally cross a street and go from a neighborhood with resources, good schools, and thriving businesses to one with abandoned buildings, underfunded schools, and a lack of basic services. This isn't by accident. This is the result of decades of redlining and systemic neglect. This economic disparity creates a cycle that's incredibly hard to break. When communities are starved of investment, jobs don't come. When schools are underfunded, the next generation isn't equipped with the tools they need to succeed. It leads to a sense of hopelessness. Young people look around and see limited pathways to success, which can lead to a whole host of other social problems. It's a trap. And instead of addressing the root causes, you see over-policing of these same underserved communities. All right, let's move on to number 4 on our list, Indiana, the crossroads of America. But for Black folks, it's starting to feel more like a crossroads where you get stuck in traffic. A lot of people might be surprised to see Indiana on this list. It's not the Deep South, but don't let that fool you. The problems in Indiana are more subtle, more insidious, but just as damaging. Indiana has a history with the Ku Klux Klan that a lot of people don't know about or choose to forget. You see it today in the form of sundown towns that, while maybe not official anymore, still carry that unwelcoming vibe. Remember the Religious Freedom Restoration Act a few years back? It was basically a license to discriminate. You look at Indiana and you see a state that feels stuck in the past. It's a state at a crossroads, all right? But it seems to be choosing the path of stagnation. Now let's follow the money again, because the economic picture in Indiana for Black residents is, frankly, not great. We're talking about a state that has struggled to keep up with the modern economy. The decline of manufacturing hit Indiana hard, and many of the communities that relied on those jobs have never fully recovered. For Black workers who were heavily concentrated in those industries, the impact was devastating. And the new jobs that have come in, often in logistics or low-wage service industries, don't offer the same kind of stability or upward mobility. It's a recipe for economic stagnation. You see this reflected in the numbers. The income and wealth gap between Black and white households in Indiana is significant and in some cases growing. Look at a city like Indianapolis. It has pockets of growth and prosperity, but it also has large Black communities that are dealing with high rates of poverty, unemployment, and underfunded schools. The investment just isn't flowing into these neighborhoods. So you have this tale of two cities within one. And if you're on the wrong side of that divide, your opportunities are severely limited. It's a system that perpetuates inequality, keeping Black families from building a solid economic foundation for future generations. This lack of opportunity leads to another major problem: brain drain. Young, educated Black people who grow up in Indiana, they go to Purdue or Indiana University, they get their degrees, and then they leave. They're not sticking around because they don't see a future for themselves there. They look to Atlanta, to DC, to Houston, to places where there's a thriving Black middle class, a strong professional network, and more diverse cultural and social scenes. They want to be in a place where they see people who look like them succeeding in all fields, not just sports. Indiana is losing its best and brightest Black talent because it can't offer them what they can find elsewhere. Ultimately, it's a simple calculation. People move for opportunity. They move for a better quality of life. They move to feel like they belong. In Indiana, for a growing number of Black Americans, the negatives are starting to outweigh the positives. The low cost of living doesn't mean much if your wages are also low and your opportunities for advancement are limited. The Hoosier hospitality feels hollow if it's not backed up by inclusive policies and a welcoming culture. So people are voting with their feet, and they're walking right past the crossroads of America on their way to greener pastures. Alright, we're halfway through the countdown. If you are enjoying the video so far, hit the like button, subscribe to Facts Zone Planet, and ring the notification bell for more informative content. Let's get back into it. Coming in at number 5, we have the state of South Carolina. Now this one is complex, man. It's a paradox. On one hand, you have a deep, rich Black history, like the Gullah Geechee culture and cities like Charleston. But on the other hand, this is the state where the first shots of the Civil War were fired, the home of Strom Thurmond. You can't escape the Confederacy in South Carolina. For years, that flag flew proudly over the State House. It's still there in the politics, in the social interactions, in the way the state chooses to remember its own history. They'll celebrate the beautiful architecture of Charleston, but gloss over the fact that it was built by the hands of enslaved Africans. It creates this constant tension, this feeling that you're living in a place that hasn't fully reconciled with its own sins, impacting the present. We're talking about a state that has been at the center of battles over voting rights for decades. For others, the climate is just too toxic. They see a place where progress is slow and hard-won. Now let's look at the economic reality in the Palmetto State. South Carolina is often praised for its low cost of living and its business-friendly environment. But what does business-friendly really mean? It often means low wages, weak unions, and fewer worker protections. South Carolina has one of the lowest rates of unionization in the country, which means workers have very little collective bargaining power. So while big companies like BMW and Boeing might set up shop there to take advantage of cheap labor, the benefits don't always trickle down to the average worker, especially the average Black worker. This creates a situation where you have a large segment of the Black population stuck in low-wage jobs in the service, hospitality, and manufacturing sectors with little to no path for advancement. The poverty rate for Black South Carolinians is more than double that of their white counterparts. That's not a gap, that's a chasm. It's a systemic issue rooted in a lack of educational opportunities and generations of economic disenfranchisement. You can't build wealth, you can't save for retirement, you can't send your kids to college when you're living paycheck to paycheck in a state that seems designed to keep you there. It's a cycle of poverty that is incredibly difficult to escape. Furthermore, the quality of public education in many parts of the state, particularly in rural and predominantly Black areas, is abysmal. They call it the Corridor of Shame, a stretch of school districts along I-95 that have been chronically underfunded for decades. How can a child be expected to succeed when their school lacks basic resources, when their teachers are underpaid, and when their classrooms are crumbling? This isn't just a failure of policy, it's a moral failure. It's a state actively robbing its own children of a future. And for Black parents, the thought of putting their kids into that system is a non-starter. So when you put it all together, South Carolina presents a tough proposition for Black families looking for a fresh start. You have a state with a deeply troubled racial history that it refuses to fully confront, a political system that often works against your interests, and an economic structure that traps people in low-wage work. The beautiful beaches and warm weather can't compensate for the lack of opportunity and the feeling of being a second-class citizen. People are looking for more. They're looking for fair wages, good schools, and a government that respects their rights. And they're realizing that they are more likely to find those things outside the borders of South Carolina. All right, let's talk about number 6, Alabama. You can't even say the name without feeling the weight of history. We've all seen the black and white footage, from Rosa Parks to George Wallace. Alabama is ground zero for the civil rights struggle. That history ain't just in the books, it's in the soil. For a lot of Black folks, that air is just too thick to breathe comfortably. It's a constant reminder of a fight that is still going on. The spirit of old Dixie ain't just packed up and left town. It's the way certain political leaders still dog whistle to that old school mentality. It's the fight over monuments dedicated to folks who fought to keep our ancestors in chains. They call it heritage. We call it hate. That ain't progress, that's a boat anchor. It's like, why would you choose to set up shop in a place where the ghosts of oppression are your next-door neighbors? It takes a toll on your spirit, man. That mental and emotional labor is exhausting. They're voting with their feet, and they're walking right past Alabama. Alabama consistently ranks low in economic opportunity, with low wages and limited job growth. Even with degrees and talent, opportunities are often blocked by cronyism and prejudice. The education system is chronically underfunded, especially in Black areas, contributing to the school-to-prison pipeline. Add to that a toxic political environment with regressive policies, attacks on healthcare, and anti-immigrant rhetoric. It all adds up to a trifecta of reasons to leave. Black people are seeing the writing on the wall and choosing to build their futures elsewhere. Arkansas, the natural state, sounds nice on paper with its mountains and rivers, but for many Black folks, the vibe is unwelcoming. The story of the Little Rock Nine is a stark reminder of the state's history. That legacy lingers in subtle and not-so-subtle ways. It's the feeling of being an outsider. Outside of a few pockets, much of Arkansas is deeply rural and conservative, which can be isolating. Arkansas has a history as a hotspot for hate groups, poisoning the atmosphere. When weighing options on where to move, a state with a tolerance for organized hate gets a hard pass. Arkansas struggles with high poverty, especially in the Black community. The job market is dominated by low-wage sectors like agriculture and manufacturing, with little opportunity in high-tech fields. Why move there when states like Georgia or Texas offer more? Economic disparities are stark, especially in the Arkansas Delta, which has a large Black population and suffers from decades of disinvestment. The current governor focuses on culture wars, distracting from real issues. Arkansas is a tough sell. Black people are moving on to find places where they can truly thrive. All right, let's climb the mountains for number 8 on our list, West Virginia. Almost heaven, as the song goes. But for Black people, it can feel like anything but. West Virginia's current reality for Black folks is defined by one overwhelming factor: isolation. West Virginia is one of the whitest states in the entire country. We're talking over 93% white. The Black population is tiny, less than 4%. It's a level of isolation that is profound. It means a near total lack of Black culture. You are completely cut off from the vibrant, supportive Black communities that are a source of strength and identity. Moving to West Virginia would be a massive culture shock. It's about representation. When you live in a state that is so overwhelmingly white, you rarely see a face that looks like yours. Ignorance and prejudice can fester. And it's a big reason why Black people look at West Virginia and say, thanks, but no thanks. If the overwhelming whiteness and cultural isolation weren't enough of a deterrent, the economic situation in West Virginia is a certified disaster. The state's economy was built on one thing: coal. And as the world moves away from coal, the state's economy has been in a freefall for decades. We're talking about entire towns hollowed out, jobs that have disappeared and are never coming back. It's a story of economic devastation, and there's been very little success in transitioning to a new, modern economy. The state is bleeding population, especially young people, because there are simply no opportunities for them. It's a sinking ship. For Black people, this economic collapse is compounded. Historically, Black workers in the coal mines faced discrimination, often getting the most dangerous jobs for the lowest pay. And now that those jobs are gone, there's nothing to replace them. The state has one of the lowest labor force participation rates in the country. People have just given up looking for work. So if you're a Black person looking for a place to build a career and create wealth, West Virginia is the last place you'd look. It's an economic wasteland with very few green shoots of new growth. Moving there for a job would be like searching for water in the middle of the Sahara. On top of the economic woes, West Virginia is the epicenter of a massive public health crisis. We're talking about the opioid epidemic, which has hit the state harder than anywhere else in the nation. This has led to skyrocketing rates of addiction, overdose deaths, and a host of related social problems. The healthcare system is completely overwhelmed and under-resourced. It's a state that is deeply, deeply unwell. And while the opioid crisis has affected all communities, it puts an additional strain on already vulnerable populations. Why would you move your family into the middle of a public health catastrophe? It's a non-starter for anyone with a choice. So you have this perfect storm of negative factors. A demographic landscape that guarantees profound cultural and social isolation for Black people. An economy in a state of permanent collapse with no jobs and no future. And a public health crisis that is tearing communities apart. It's a trifecta of despair. West Virginia is not a place of opportunity. For many, it's a place of last resort. And Black people, who are increasingly mobile and have more options than ever before, are wisely choosing to avoid it altogether. They are seeking heaven elsewhere because West Virginia, for all its natural beauty, is offering them very little to hope for. It's a definite skip. Mississippi, the Magnolia State, carries a heavy legacy. For many Black folks, it evokes a history of pain and struggle that still echoes today. The state held on to the Confederate emblem on its flag until recently, a reminder of systemic racism. Mississippi consistently ranks at the bottom in education, healthcare, and economic opportunity. Black people seek places to thrive, not just survive, with upward mobility and safe communities. Mississippi, with its deep-seated problems, is increasingly seen as a place to leave. The Jackson water crisis is a heartbreaking example of systemic neglect. For years, Jackson, a city that is over 80% Black, has been dealing with a completely failing water system. We're talking about boil water notices, low water pressure, and brown contaminated tap water. It's an absolute disgrace and a clear case of environmental racism. This isn't just an infrastructure problem, it's a human rights issue. The state government has been accused of withholding necessary funds from Jackson. This crisis is the direct result of decades of neglect and disinvestment. It's a slow-motion disaster that everyone saw coming, but nobody in power seemed to care enough to stop. The Jackson water crisis is a modern-day testament to the state's priorities. They are voting with their feet, leaving behind a state that has proven that it is not invested in their well-being or their future. It's a sad story, but it's the truth. We head down to Louisiana, the Pelican State. Louisiana is a state with so much culture, so much soul. But beneath that vibrant surface, there's a whole mess of problems. It's like a beautiful house with a rotten foundation. Louisiana finds itself near the bottom for economic health. Jobs can be scarce and often don't pay a living wage. Louisiana has a notorious reputation as the world's prison capital, with a hugely disproportionate number of incarcerated Black men. On top of all that, you have the constant threat of Mother Nature. Louisiana is on the front lines of climate change, with hurricanes getting stronger and more frequent. It's one more layer of instability in a state that's already on shaky ground. Let's dig deeper into one of the most shameful parts of Louisiana's story, Cancer Alley. This 85-mile stretch along the Mississippi River between Baton Rouge and New Orleans is packed with petrochemical plants and refineries, disproportionately next to poor, Black communities. These companies have been pumping toxic chemicals into the air and water for decades. The cancer risk in some communities is 50 times the national average. This is environmental racism. For any Black person considering a move to Louisiana, the existence of Cancer Alley is a terrifying warning. Louisiana also has some of the highest insurance rates in the country. Because of the high risk of hurricanes and flooding, homeowners insurance is astronomical, if you can even get it. When you stack it all up, the stagnant economy, the threat of climate disaster, the pollution in Cancer Alley, and the crushing cost of insurance, the case against moving to Louisiana becomes overwhelming. So there you have it. 10 states, 10 stories of why Black folks are swiping left. From the political battles in Florida to the environmental injustices in Louisiana, the reasons are complex, but the theme is the same. Black people are seeking safety, opportunity, and respect, and they are refusing to settle for places that won't provide it. This isn't about hating on any particular state. It's about holding them accountable. It's about demanding better. It's about recognizing our power, our value, and our right to thrive in environments that nurture our growth, not stunt it. The Great Migration of the 20th century was about escaping the Jim Crow South. This new migration, this reshuffling, is about moving towards a better future, wherever that may be. Now I gotta turn the mic over to you all. The conversation doesn't end here. This is where it starts. Are you from one of these states? Did you leave? Or are you planning your exit? What's the vibe where you live right now? Is your city, your state, a place that is helping or hurting Black futures? I want to hear the real story from the ground. Your experience is valid, your voice matters, so drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's build a community and share this knowledge because information is power, and we need to empower each other to make the best decisions for ourselves and our families. And while you're down there sharing your truth, go ahead and do us a solid. If you found this video informative, if it made you think, if it sparked a conversation, then please do me a favor. Go ahead and like the video. It really helps the channel out. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our future content because we're always going to be breaking things down like this. And most importantly, share this with someone who needs to see it. Share it with your cousin who's thinking about moving, share it with your friends, share it with anyone who needs to think twice before they pack that U-Haul. This has been Fact Zone Planet, where we keep it real, we keep it raw, and we keep it rooted in the truth. We're not here to sugarcoat things, we're here to tell it like it is, because you deserve the facts. You deserve to know what's really going on so you can navigate this world and build the life you deserve. We appreciate you for tapping in, for listening, and for being a part of this important conversation. Until next time, stay safe, stay informed, and stay empowered. Peace.